Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. I'm Scott Chalet. I'm President and CEO of the Florida Retail Federation. We're excited to be here today as we try to move forward with legislation to support Florida's retailers on a level playing field. We really want to support those businesses that invest in Florida, hire Floridians, pay taxes in Florida, and support our local communities. And we're very, very fortunate to have the leadership of Senator Joe Gruter S, as well as Representative Chuck Clemens carrying this bill forward. We're fortunate as well to have quite a few co-sponsors in both chambers. I won't try to list them all. It's a good problem to have when you have so many on a bipartisan basis supporting such important legislation. I'm also pleased to be joined today by my colleagues and supporters from the other business groups, with David Hart from the Florida Chamber, who you'll hear from shortly, Brewster Beavis from Associated Industries of Florida, and Jennifer Platt from International Council of Shopping Centers. But really the most important person that you'll hear from today is Shannon Collins, who's here on behalf of Badcock Home Furniture and More, a Florida-grown business that hires many Floridians and supports communities throughout the state of Florida. So with that, let me turn it over to Chair Gruter for some remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it. I'd like to thank the Florida Retail Federation, everybody for coming out, especially Senator Ben Albritton and the representatives for being up here. And what you see behind me is the Florida businesses. And there's no reason why we should be giving foreign corporations and out-of-state companies an advantage over our local brick and mortars when these guys are contributing to our communities, paying payroll taxes, property taxes, everything else. It's and I have the advantage of being a practicing tax CPA, and I can tell you with the certainty, this is not a tax increase. This is an existing tax. We're just changing the way it's collected and doing it at the point of sale. And what we're really going to do is we're going to level the playing field, and we won't level it all the way, but it doesn't take much to go to the local malls or to Main Street to see the boarded up shops. And the question is do we want to continue to allow these foreign companies and out-of-state companies and give them the advantage over our local state companies? It makes no sense. It's a huge advantage to Florida to collect it at the point of sale, because what happens is we're making all these individuals who are supposed to remit these taxes by themselves by going on the DOR website to download the form, sign the form, send it in. We're basically making them all tax cheats because the complexity of doing all that is too much for most consumers. And at the end of the day, this is a convenience for consumers. It's the right thing for the state of Florida. Obviously, you can see all the main business groups are behind us. This is would be a boon to our local shops, and it's time to level the playing field and do the right thing for Florida businesses. And so I just want to thank the AIF, the Florida Chamber, the Florida Retail Federation, all the local mom and pop retailers out there trying to make it, who are struggling against these, like I said, foreign companies, out-of-state companies that can, and I was talking to one of these retailers the other day, and they sell a product that's in the $1,000 range, and it makes a difference, that 6 and 7% sales tax. And if you follow a strategy as an individual to avoid taxes, you can save a lot of money long term. But what it costs us jobs, and it costs us a lot of money into our state coffers. And so it's time to change this law. And I'm so happy that we are building the momentum and everything else. So Scott, thank you again for the opportunity, and we look forward to passing this out of the Senate this year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to introduce now Representative Clemens. Really appreciate his leadership as a small business owner himself. He knows the impact of this, and we appreciate his leadership.
Thank you, sir. Senator Gruter's pretty much covered most of the talking points. I just want to speak from the heart. When you start a business or any sort of competitive operation, you expect to have a level playing field. You expect to have the same laws applied to you as everyone else. This is just not the case, and that's why I'm happy to help to champion leveling this playing field. I'm thankful for the 15 co-sponsors in the House that are from both parties that would like to bring tax fairness to the citizens of the state of Florida. If you have a mom and pop business in downtown Newberry, Florida, you do not want to wake up every day at an economic disadvantage from someone sitting on their couch ordering a big ticket item from the internet. That's just not right. Florida prides itself on being business friendly. This piece of legislation is business friendly and would help to level this playing field for every business, whether they're large or small. I'll fight really hard to make sure that this passes, and I would urge other members of the Florida House to look at this legislation, talk to the mom and pop businesses that they have in their districts, and then they will quickly come to the same conclusion that I did. We're going to help level this field, and we're going to help do it this session. Thank you so much, Scott.
Now I'd like to call up Kurt Winter on behalf of Florida Tax Watch. As many of you know, Florida Tax Watch has spent decades looking after citizens of Florida and advocating for good tax policy. So, Kurt.
Scott. Good morning, everyone. Florida Tax Watch has been involved in this issue for at least 20 years, and we wholeheartedly support Senate Bill 126 and House Bill 159. Currently, our system puts the burden of collecting and remitting taxes on remote sales on the back of the consumer, and this system doesn't work. Not only is it unfair to retailers, as been talked about today, but it also creates inequities among Florida taxpayers and consumers. It's not fair for shoppers who choose to buy their goods from a Florida retailer to have to pay the tax when people who send their money out of state on purchases don't have to. It's even more unfair for the relatively few conscientious taxpayers who go through the trouble of remitting the use tax to the Department of Revenue directly. And for the persons that don't realize that they owe the tax or have no idea how to pay it, they are exposed to audit and collection enforcement by the state. It's not fair for these people to have to pay the tax because DOR came across one of their transactions when most people do not. It is a tax, and people are finding that they're going to have to pay it. If the tax was collected by the seller, the state would get the money. DOR doesn't have to spend their resources to collect it, and Floridians are spared the trouble and the emotions of going through an audit. Florida tax laws should not make consumers unwitting lawbreakers. Florida is one of only 2 states that has yet to take steps to address this in the wake of the Wayfair Supreme Court decision. Now is the time to shift the burden of collecting and remitting taxes to where it belongs, on the seller. We'd like to thank Senator Gruter S, Representative Clemens for their hard work on this issue, and let's make this the year that Florida finally acts. Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask David Hart on behalf of the Florida Chamber to come forward with a few comments.
Thank you, Scott. I'm David Hart. I'm the Executive Vice President at the Florida Chamber of Commerce. We are pleased to be here today and continue the fight to make Florida the most competitive tax climate in the country. This legislation would simply level the playing field for our Main Street businesses in Florida. Quite frankly, one thing I think we can all agree on is that government should not be picking winners and losers. But without the passage of this legislation, that is exactly the posture Florida is in. I want to thank Representative Clemens. I want to thank Senator Gruter S for their leadership on this and underscore that this is not a new tax, as has been said. This tax is already on the books, but is seldom collected. We have a chance to pass it this year and join every other state except Missouri since the Wayfair decision was made by the Supreme Court, who have adopted similar legislation. Let's make this the year we get it done. Thank you.
And Brewster Beavis on behalf of Associated Industries of Florida.
Thank you, Scott. My name is Brewster Beavis. I'm Senior Vice President of Associated Industries of Florida. As most of you know, for 100 years, AIF has been promoting an economic climate in Florida that is beneficial to the growth and development of our economy and for the people of the state. For us, this is a simple issue. Foreign companies are taking advantage of our laws. By passing Senate Bill 126 and House Bill 159 this session, we can once again enable Florida businesses to be competitive and successful. We must move this legislation forward to help our businesses right here at home, instead of leaving them at a disadvantage to foreign companies. AIF supports this positive piece of legislation And thanks Senator Gruter and Representative Clemens for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Now I'd like to recognize, I'm sorry, I lost my track here, Jennifer Platt, representing the International Council of Shopping Centers.
Good morning, and thank you, Scott, for inviting us to stand with you and everyone here and Florida retailers today. This is a very important issue for ICSC. We want to make sure that our retailers are able to compete all across the country and that Florida retailers can continue to provide jobs to Florida families. That's not happening because of Florida's outdated and antiquated tax system. A sale is a sale regardless of whether it takes place on Main Street or on the internet. And unless, if Florida is going to have a sales tax, then they need to enforce it evenly across all sales. These losses, according to the Office of Economic and Demographic Research, the state's losing $600 million this year in lost sales taxes. And those losses mean less money for public safety, for first responders, for education, and other critical needs in the state, including Florida, and that doesn't have to happen. There's a way to fix it. We applaud the Florida Retail Federation, along with the leadership of Senator Gruter and Representative Clemens, for proposing this legislation to level the playing field for all community-based retailers. Thanks.
And finally, as I referenced earlier, the most important person in the room, I think, is Shannon Collins, representing Badcock Furniture, Home Furniture, and more. She's one of thousands of retailers that deals with this on a daily basis, and not in the theoretical sense as we do here in the Capitol, but in a very realistic sense in terms of bottom line and their ability to make a profit, to compete, and to pass along those earnings to employees and to the community. So with that, Shannon Collins from Badcock.
Thanks so much, Scott. We are certainly excited to be here today. Badcock is so proud to have more than 100 retail stores here in the state of Florida. We, in addition to having all of our stores, we also have a robust online presence as well. We want to stand today with the Florida Retail Federation to bring a level playing field for all of our Florida-based businesses so that we are able to compete not only in our state but across the nation without being penalized for the outdated tax system that we have here in Florida. These tax problems not only affect our bottom line, but they affect the bottom line of small, medium, and large businesses all throughout our state. And when Florida businesses struggle to make ends meet, Florida jobs are what are at stake. Badcock is a proud employer of Florida families. We actually have over 1,400 different employees that we support, not only through our corporate stores, but through our dealer stores all throughout Florida. We are such a strong supporter of all the communities that we are in. We invest in those communities, and we are proud to be a part of that fabric of Florida retail industry, as we have been for over 115 years. Today, we must all stand with Florida retailers so that we can continue to be competitive and support the residents, businesses, and communities of this great state. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. You've heard the word level playing field probably as many times as you want to today, but I just want to reiterate that's all it's about. It's not about an advantage. It's not about anything beyond the level playing field and protecting the consumer from an unwieldy and cumbersome tax payment requirement. So we feel very strongly that this is in the best interest of Florida business, and we look forward to the support of legislative leadership to move this forward. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions. Okay, thank you.